Hello everybody! Today we are going to be going over a build for my girl Harley Quinn. This build is the strongest possible build in the game as of right now, and almost everyone, except for Deadshot really, can take this to the level cap, which seems to be finite rank 609. Now expect this build to be nerfed in the future. It is absurd how much damage is happening here. I don't have the drive to grind to finite crisis rank 609 because that's a lot of grind ahead of you if you want to reach that. That's where everyone is on the leaderboards right now. But if I were to grind that out, this is the build I would be using to do it because of the absurdity of how much damage fire damage does. Now, it is going to revolve entirely around the damage over time from burn afflictions, so pay close attention to the gear here. It is also very important that you guys understand how to properly use this build. You're not going to be killing things with your guns, grenades, suicide strikes, or traversal attacks, and you don't want to pop this squad ultimate. You don't want to slow down time because that will also slow down the tick rate of your burns. All the damage you're going to be doing comes directly from the damage over time effects from burn. So you're going to want to use black mask guns to mark as many targets as possible. Keep in mind, there is a seasonal modifier that makes it so you cannot apply afflictions to enemies unless you crit them first. If you are ever wondering why the enemies aren't burning, this is the reason why. Very important to spec into crit chance for your squad tree and anywhere else you can for your gear as well. I will be showing you the augments I use, but I cannot stress enough how you are only going to be doing damage through the damage over time of the burn affliction. I really do mean it when I say you're not going to be doing any damage in comparison. Something is wrong with the way that tick rate scales in this game. I cannot believe this is intended, so I assume it's some kind of weird damage interaction where everything is being scaled by so much more than is intended. It almost seems like the gear bonuses you have for damage to burning enemies is multiplied much higher than it should be when we're dealing with things like damage over time effects from the affliction. As you can see, we are kind of just cruising straight through Mastery 80 and above. As I said, this will take you to level cap if you want. I do not have the determination to grind all that out, but if you do, this is the build to get you through. And it does work on all characters. I prefer it on Harley the most because I think she has the most survivability with her traversal. Being able to just kind of dangle around in the air is fantastic. So let's get into the build here. Alright, here's the tree. Not much variation here. The heavy hitters are definitely going to be performance art for survivability, for me anyways. I like to have Grenade Parade for extra damage. Other than that, you can kind of do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter what you build here, because like I said before, all the damage comes from tick damage, and that doesn't really scale with the source that the tick damage is caused from. Like, whether it be weapon or grenade, it doesn't really matter too much. So just any kind of flat damage bonuses we take, just copy the tree here. We can move on to the gear now. Alright, let's talk about the build. I'm going to try to be a little quick here, not to keep you here all day, so try to pay attention as much as you can. I'm going to be a little quick here, just keep that in mind. We are running 2 LMGs, Black Mask's Bullet Storm, for obvious reasons. Anytime you hit 3 enemies with this, it will mark them and blow them up, causing a fire explosion and applying the burn affliction. Keep in mind, this will only happen once the enemies have been crit already because of the seasonal modifier that doesn't apply afflictions unless an enemy has been crit. That is also why we want to mod 10% crit chance onto it. And we also want to have 50% damage to infused enemies, as that applies to our tick rate on Flash and Batman infused enemies. The blue perk does not really benefit us in any way. Nothing in that column really helps our tick damage. Now, this one's a little interesting. We do have the super spreader on. You might be wondering why. That is because its legendary perk gets applied as long as you have the weapon out when an enemy dies, meaning that you can apply the burn affliction from Black Mask's Bullet Storm, take this out, simply hold it in your hands, and then if the enemy dies from burning, the legendary perk here will proc, and they will explode and apply an even more damaging burn to nearby enemies. This is not the one I normally use. You want to mod it the exact same way you have this one, with the 50% damage to infused enemies and the 10% crit hit chance for this firearm. This unfortunately does not have that, but I don't run this one. I have a separate one that I run, but I'm not going to go dig it out right now. For our melee, we are running free flow because it gives you a lot of combo. Now, you will be at 50% combo most of the time, unless you're dealing with Flash and Batman infused brutes. They can tank your combo pretty easily. So if you are facing off against those, Free Flow is great for getting the 50 times combo. You just hit them a bunch of times with the hammer. You can also mod shield regeneration onto this on melee hits so that you get both combo and shield back, which is very nice in the thick of it. But this isn't too important in my opinion. If you feel like you're staying at 50 even with brutes, you can run whatever melee you want. This is just my preferred one. For our grenade, we run One Man's Trash for the one-piece gizmo set that gives us 50% damage to burning enemies. Really strong. The only augments that you really care about here are the green and the blue, because you do want the explosion radius and you want the 10% grenade drop chance. The damage one doesn't really matter because grenade damage does not affect our tick damage. If you feel like you're running out of grenades though, feel free to throw on a volatile personality, as this increases your grenade capacity to 10, and it also gives you 3 grenades instead of 1 whenever you do a grenade pickup. For our shield, we run Heat Wave's Molten Skin. Anytime you light an enemy on fire, you get immunity to all damage for 2 seconds, stacking up to 30. Very strong, especially when you're starting off the fight and nobody's on fire. Basically gives you full immunity to damage. 50% damage while shield is active is the most important thing here, because your shield will be at 100% most of the time if you're benefiting from this notorious perk already. And then you also want to make sure that the green augment is modded for crit chance. Our traversal mod, I've talked about it in previous videos. Still Force Conduit is still coming out on top as one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful traversal mod in the game, because it simply gives you 500% increased damage as long as you're moving for 10 seconds or more. You want to mod this for damage to enemies that are 25 meters or further away. Very easy to achieve with Harley. Just launch yourself in the air with your grapple, and then just kind of dangle around from your drone while raining hell down on them. You also want to give it the 15% damage to grunt enemies and the 15% damage to brute enemies, as this does apply to tick damage. Our neck bomb mod is going to be a tier 3 Bane piece because it increases our damage by 4%. It increases damage that the enemy takes, by 4% for each 1% of their health that is missing. This does apply to tick damage. Very strong. You want to mod it for 50% damage to burning enemies. The other two don't really matter because they do not apply to our tick damage. Our lucky charm, you guessed it, is going to be Jinx's Unlucky Coin. Anytime an enemy is afflicted by anything, they take 250% increased damage, but it cycles through each affliction, and whatever affliction is highlighted by its cycling nature is going to have another 750% increased damage on top of that applied to them. Meaning that if Jinx's Lucky Coin cycles through to Diablo Blaze, the enemies will take 1,000% increased damage. Very, very strong. Now, there is one thing you can change with this build. You could swap out this neck bomb for one of Hugo's bombs right here. This one isn't modded the way I want it to be, but it'll do just for an example. After afflicting 5 enemies with the same affliction, fire, you are now immune to damage from enemies afflicted by that affliction, fire, for 20 seconds. So Heat Wave's Molten Skin is phenomenal for kicking off the fight by giving you immunity, and then once the fight is going down, once the battle is happening and you're already in the thick of it, Hugo's Strange Specialization is going to keep you immune. You can also sub out your Super Spreader if you're not using its special legendary interaction the way that we described earlier, and you can put on a tier 3 Bane gun so that you can still benefit from that one-piece bonus. Sorry, that is a tier 1 piece. You can just put on a tier 3 Bane gun so that you are benefiting from the one-piece set bonus. Alright, that was a lot, but we aren't done. Let's jump over to our squad skills. I'm currently modded out for XP, but if you want to mod out for your combat potential, you do want to have your crit chance up, you want to have your Batman and Flash infused enemies up, and you want to have your damage to grunts and damage to brutes up. After that, the rest is your decision. You could probably go for fire damage. Yeah, damage to burning enemies. You can probably spec into that as well. But yeah, crit, grunt, brute, burn, and then you're infused. Those are what you want to focus on when it comes down to combat. But I'm obviously spec'd here just so I can get some more XP gain. Breaking news! We're not actually done yet. I forgot to cover what you want your bot squad to have. So make sure that you don't have any of your friends or any clanmates subbing in. You want to replace them all with bots. Make sure you do that. That way you're playing with people that you have control over, the bots you have control over. You want to make sure that they all have stacked decks. Now, I also make sure that they have the 2-piece gizmo set so that anytime they throw a grenade, they're applying burn afflictions. But you want to make sure that they all have stacked decks in their primary slot. And this is because every time they shoot an enemy, that enemy is going to take 30% more damage, up to a maximum of 750% increased damage. So basically, all of your AI companions will be buffing your damage. And that is all. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you guys enjoy the build, let me know. I actually kind of hope they do nerf this. You are not supposed to be at mastery levels above 100. This could be an issue in the game if they don't get this under control very quickly, because everyone's going to get a taste of this power and then be sad when they lose it. But if this build exists for a long period of time, I think it might just kill all diversity in this game when it comes to build crafting, and there is a lot to be had there. So hopefully they get their wraps on this, but if you want to feel powerful, use this while you can. It is strong. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing, as it helps out tremendously, and I really do appreciate it. If you ever want to hang out live, check out my Twitch in the description below. And as always, have a phenomenal day. I'm Hatterax, signing off. Peace.